Alrighty, folks, this man probably doesn't need an introduction. He is all over the place doing amazing things. I think one of the best things about this guest is he is willing to look himself in the mirror and be honest with himself and you. And I say this because he just put out a interview or a breakdown of how he lost a couple of $1,000,000. That wasn't fun. That wasn't easy. And most people wouldn't have the balls to do it. We've got Ryan Pineda with us today. How you doing, buddy?
What's up, man? Always good to see you.
I appreciate that. What the heck, man? You're breaking social media. You're only supposed to post the wins,
I
not your
know, dude.
losses. What are you doing?
I don't know, man. You know what's funny is that video was actually at WealthCon, and it was a presentation I did, and I was like, man, what do these 1,000 people need to hear? And I was like, I think they need to hear that people struggle. It's not just all good. And so the bigger thing is once you even get to a higher level, the struggle and the losses become bigger and bigger. Like it just
Yeah,
that's the game.
yeah, yeah. Um, Again, I want to applaud you. I want to pat you on the back. Whatever it is that kind of maturity, self-reflection was not only, I'm sure, appreciated by the audience, because if you are in the real estate investing game for the last 5 years, you had 4 really, really good years. Up and to the right, couldn't do any wrong. Everything you touched turned to gold. And then last year, certainly the first half was rough. I knew lots of flippers who lost 6 figures, some lost 7 figures. And most of them don't have the balls to acknowledge it publicly. They don't want to kind of take away the shine. They think it'll be a reputation hit, and it won't. I think you, at least in my view, and I'm sure others who followed for you a long time, have more respect from you now than even before, right? Because again, 4 years was easy. If you doubled or tripled down, it was easy. Um, that first 6 months in 2023, not easy. Lots of losses. The market stopped. And in that presentation, you really highlighted some lessons. So I think we should talk about them if you remember them.
Yeah, no, 100%. And let me add too, it was also the second half of 2022. So I think for real estate investors, it's really been about the last 18 months that have been very difficult. Fix and flippers, especially because, I mean, a guy like me going into, this kind of fluke situation where they doubled rates faster than they ever have in history,
Yeah.
you're going to get hit harder than everyone. And I had like 50 flips going on. And so you have just bigger numbers you're playing with than everyone else. You're just going to lose more when something like that happens. But, also on top of that, even right now, like you're a rental guy. It's hard to find rentals that pencil out. If your
Amen.
whole game has
Yes.
been about just getting rentals, well, guess what? In a high interest rate environment and a high price environment, it's tough because rents have not caught up.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
100%.
it's tough to be a real estate investor right now, but the good news is, I think we're finally out of it.
Yeah. I think 2024 is setting up to be a lot different. And again, I'll find the video. I'll link it below because I think really people need to watch that presentation. I remember one of the talks, one of the points that really hit home for me. And it's really because I know you and your story, right? One of the things that makes Ryan Pineda is you have historically time blocked your when you work.
Hmm.
And outside of that, it's family time, it's all of that. You don't generally work weekends. Getting you after 5 o'clock is very rare. All of those things that really make you who you are. And one of the
Hmm.
things you had to acknowledge while working with your wife, while, oh, by the way, she was pregnant. Congratulations, your son, right? Was
Yep,
recently
Judah.
born.
Yep.
Judah was born. So congratulations on that. That's a whole nother story, which we may touch on.
Yep.
Um, you had to have a heart to heart because again, she lived the last 4 years of up and to the right, husband's home at 5 or 4 or whatever it is, doesn't do anything on the weekend. And in order for you to get through, 12 or 18 months, you had to change. You had to operate differently to
So
get
you're
through
looking
it.
to buy your first rental. Yep. Property this 100%. Year. I don't know what just happened there. No, 100%. So yeah, and it's not even the last 4 years. It's been like the last 10 years together in marriage. I have been, the way I said I've always done it, and she'll
Yeah.
she'll be the first to testify that. And, at the end of the day, this last year was very difficult. And I had to work more than I ever have. I've had to I've had to like put out more fires than ever. I've had to fire, hire, do so many different things, shut down businesses, sell properties, just, all these things you don't really have to do, when you're in the accumulation stage.
Right.
So, you go to like your first defensive year, in a long time. And, what she didn't understand because I just wasn't communicating properly was that, hey, I'm not working more because I'm like over here trying to like be ambitious and
Right.
grow and like take us to the moon. I'm over here because I'm trying to make sure we don't collapse, you
Right.
know? And so for me, um, I just knew I'm like, look, we got like 100 employees.
Yeah.
I owe it to not only them or my family, but I owe it to them and everyone else to just give it everything I've got to make sure that everything's going to be all good. Um, and I've always said this because it's like, look, at the end of the day, even if things did collapse, I know I'll be good the next day
Right.
because I'll rebuild faster than, ever. You
Right.
can't take away skills. You can't take away relationships. You can't take away faith. Like, I know I'll be fine, but, at the end of the day, I just had to bear down. And, she was having a really tough time because I didn't explain that to her. And all she sees me do is working more and more and more. And she sees it as a sign of, man, this guy is going against the things he says are important, because he wants to just build this massive company. And, it wasn't until we finally had a real sit down because we were starting to have some problems. And I was like, look, this is what's happening. I don't tell you every little thing with business. It's always been that way our whole marriage. She doesn't care to know. She doesn't ask me like when I get home from work, like, hey, what'd you do today? Because literally every hour I couldn't even repeat what I did. I'm like, I don't know. My brain is like dead. I don't know. I can't even tell you what I just did for 9 hours straight. Um, because most people they have like one thing that happened that day and they're like, oh yeah,
Right.
this was pretty. I'm like, dude, every hour is on the hour with something. So, I explained it to her and I was like, look, this isn't about me trying to grow. Like, this is the situation we're in. We're
Right.
facing losses, we're facing lawsuits, we're facing this, we're facing that. Um, and unfortunately, I have to not only stop these fires, but I also have to make sure the business still operate and do the things we got to do as if they weren't happening, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. I think again, I think communication, especially as if a season changes with the significant other, in this case, your wife, that will clearly be different going forward. You'll make sure to communicate more if seasons change, because that's what catches spouses and significant others by surprise. Right? They don't really understand that suddenly there's five fires. Right? They just, hey, yesterday was this, today's different. Is that fair?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and once again, right, it just depends like how much you and your spouse communicate.
Sure.
In terms of business, Mindy and I, like I said, we have not communicated about business very much for our entire marriage. And I think that's actually been really good for us because one, she's really just not that interested. Like she's like, I like the life we live. I know you love doing it, and I'm not trying to mess it up. Just do you. And
You do
so,
you.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so it's worked out great. And I'll tell her, when I'm going to start something completely new, and she's like, "Great, sounds good." But you know, we didn't communicate about this, and that's on me. I take full responsibility for not telling her that, yo, this is what's actually happening. I'm not trying to grow the business. I promise you.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. Well, another thing you talked about, as I remember correctly, is you had to make some hard calls on team members. And again, knowing you, calling them team members is probably oversimplifying. They're probably more like family to you. And
Yeah,
they had been with you a while. Uh,
yeah,
something changed and they weren't carrying their water and you had to make some tough calls.
yeah. One thing I've come to realize in business is that, nothing lasts forever. At the end of the day, we'd love to build the next Coca-Cola,
Mm.
but there are very few 100-year-old companies. In fact, there are very few 5-year-old companies. 4 out of 5 fail. There are very few 10-year-old companies. I think the stat is 9 out of 10 fail. And so, you start thinking about that, and then you look at the way the world is today. It's not like when we grew up where they're like, yeah, you're going to go get in with a company early on, work your way up. You'll spend 20 years there. That's not what it is. The average tenure in America is under 3 years at a job.
Wow.
So I've seen it firsthand where I'm like, you get into business, you're like, dude, we're going to be like doing this forever. And then something happens. And there's a lot of things that can happen to cause it, right? I mean, one could be, okay, maybe you as a business owner, you just don't do a good job and the business fails, right? That hasn't necessarily been the case. Um, One could be the business outgrows that person. That's definitely like something I'm having to deal with is like, man, okay, well, we're going to grow, right? And we're going to keep going places. So if you cannot grow with it, well, I'm going to have to get somebody else who can. And so that's a tough thing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean they have to necessarily like lose their job, but they may get demoted or, be stuck. They're not going to be able to keep progressing because they're just not good enough. And
Right.
so that's that could cause culture problems, because people start to feel like, well, dude, I helped this company get to this point. I've been here from the beginning and now you're going to bring in somebody else. And it's like, well, I now understand why these publicly traded companies and these VCs and stuff like replace founders
Mm.
because it's so clear to me now that like, yeah, you might have had a good idea. You might have been the guy for this current stage, but you are not the guy to get us to the next level.
Yeah.
Um,
Makes sense.
so, you could lose them that way. They could just have something happen in their life. They might go through a divorce. They might, you
Mhm.
know, get a drug problem. Like, people
Yeah.
are people. So, at the end of the day, I've realized nothing is forever,
Okay.
and you just have to like know that.
Yeah. When you go back to that WealthCon presentation, sharing with those 1,000 folks, what are some of the other kind of highlights that you remember kind of that were important to you to kind of acknowledge, this evolution?
Um, I talked about the communication piece. I talked about how tough it was, letting people go. On the real estate side, I talked about how, many flippers were, the reason they don't talk about it is because they're still like they're starting over, like they're done. And
Yeah.
so, these are guys who were millionaires who are now done and they've got to start back from zero.
Yeah.
Um, I'm only able to talk about it because that ain't me. I'm still up to, I don't need anyone to feel bad for me. I'm doing
No.
just fine.
Yeah,
But
no. Yeah.
that's why I don't I wouldn't be talking about it if I was starting from zero and I was like at,
Yeah.
the absolute bottom. So yeah, I think that's kind of it. But the main thing I said with how I got through so many losses was that I'm grateful I have multiple cash conversion cycles for real estate. So
Exactly.
lots of people are simply, you know, flippers only. And so they got to wait.
Mhm.
They were thinking they were going to wait 3 to 6 months to flip the house and get the money back and everything else. And then that turned into 6 to 12 months. And so, all of a sudden money's not coming in. And guess what? 6 to 12 months later, instead of actually getting a check back, you're writing a check.
Writing a check. Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
And, how do you write checks if you were expecting to make money? Well, you better be making money some other way. And so for me, one of the things that helped was obviously I have multiple businesses, so that helps. But even just on the real estate side, um, knowing that, hey, we still wholesale and do novations. Like we have money coming in every month from
Yeah.
deals that are just brand new. Um, I have a big rental portfolio. And so what did I do? Well, I sold off, a few rentals. I probably sold off I don't know, $1 million of equity, to tap into to help
Sure.
cover the loss. And it's like, people are like, dude, I'm going to keep this rental forever. No, you're not. Like,
Yeah.
what's the point of a rental? It's an asset. And
Yep.
so why do you even have an asset? I
Yep.
mean, it's to make money. And,
Mhm.
for me, those are like little piggy banks I've got all
Sure.
over the country. And I'm like, hey, I need the piggy bank right now. Let's sell that thing
Yeah.
and cover this loss. So
Yeah.
I had rental properties, and it's only because of all these different cycles of how we make money in real estate that I was able to get through it.
Yeah. I love that. Well, let's talk about, Ryan Pineda, the brand, everything. If you were to kind of lay out all the income streams or businesses, would it be fair to say, as a complete outsider, that Ryan Pineda heading into 2024 versus coming into 2023 is less complex, more
Yes,
streamlined? Would that be fair?
absolutely. Yep, way less going on.
Yeah, and that was purposeful.
Well, I mean, it is purposeful now after going through this year. Yeah.
I like that. I like
Definitely.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think acknowledging that, because I think again, anytime you run a 10-year track record of everything's up and to the right, everything you touch is turns to gold, you can get a little fat, a little kind of stretched.
Yep.
And you have that one hard season where you're going back to the piggy banks. It's like, hey, there are seasons in this, and let's do what we do really, really well. And I
Mhm.
think you're set up for that. Is that fair?
Oh, 1000%, man. I've started a lot of different businesses over the last, call it 4 years. And, I've had success in a bunch. I have had not success, the opposite of success in others. I have sold businesses that have made profit and, were successful and it just wasn't worth it anymore. Or there was, something that maybe not want to really, see myself doing that the next 5 years or whatever. So, at the end of the day, I think my life is so much more streamlined these days. It's like I really have, you know, three core pillars of what I'm doing at this point. Um, one's obviously real estate. And, I'm going back to actually my house flipping wholesaling company for the first time in years. And I'm reinventing that business. And, this is like the biggest reinvention I've ever done in literally my career for that business. I mean, it's been pretty much the same business the last 8 years, and it's been very hands off. And now it's being reinvented to something that can be, very massive. So I'm excited about that. Um, then we have the education piece, and I have multiple businesses in the education world, but the cool thing about that is they all follow the same model. You got to be really good at teaching the subject at whatever it is you're doing, right? And so we have education for real estate, we have education for social media, we have education for business. Um, and so we have great, programs, and then we're really good at, building funnels and sales and marketing to get people, in the program. We're good at throwing events. And so, obviously the education side, I love it because we help a lot of people, makes a lot of money, and it leads to a lot of opportunities with investments and deals and all of that. So, that's the second pillar of what we do. And then, the third pillar of what we do is just what I would say is the social media front,
Mhm.
you know. So the social media side of things is just all about, you know, content and media and building everything on that front. And you know, we're always trying to get better at that. I'm building um, my employees up underneath me to be their own brands and own faces and playing the long game with that. And it's exciting.
Yeah. I think one of the things that is should be known by folks, if they don't, I'll put it out there, is these 3 pillars, they all cross-pollinate, right? When people hear pillars, they may think they're individual, but the way you're doing it and the way it is working, they all feed on each other. There's all cross-pollination. Somebody comes in one, they could be part of the other, and that is really where you get maximum leverage. It's really well done.
Yeah, thank you. It's interesting. I have lots of things I want to do, still that are not necessarily cross-pollinating. Well, I guess social media cross-pollinates everything, but
Sure.
with the education, the real estate and everything, not as much. But it's I have the discipline this year to say that no, at
This
least as of 2024, we're
right.
really gonna just optimize and just do these things super
Yeah.
well. And does it mean I'm never going to start another business? Absolutely not. I love entrepreneurship and I love
Yeah.
starting businesses and I know I will again too, but it's like, hey, this year's about, you
Not
know,
2024.
not 2024.
So let me go. I told you this in the intro that I was going to spring this on you. I believe this is your superpower. Um, it also might be part of what caused the pain in the last 12 or 18 months. But I think your superpower, watching from the outside and knowing you, a millimeter deep, is delegation.
Mm,
And you could take an idea, you could take the inspiration, but you are very comfortable my words, not yours, giving it to someone else, right? You hire that next level and you trust them to do their thing. And um, that's what that's a superpower, I think. That's certainly one I do not have. What do you think of that?
Um, no, I love it. Yeah, a lot of people have told me that. I was on my friend Omar El Takori's podcast recently, and he was like, "Can I tell you what I think your superpower is that you don't even know?" And I
Hmm.
was like, "Are you going to say delegating or what?"
Oh,
Because
okay.
a lot of
Everybody does.
people,
All right.
a lot of people say that, and
All right.
I guess a lot of people struggle with it. You know,
Yeah.
for me, it was always a natural thing, just because I wanted to play baseball and also make money, and I couldn't do both. And so I
Uh,
learned at a very young age in my entrepreneur career of like, well, I guess I gotta just like hire people if I want to do both. And so I never was like, well, it's only one thing or the other. It's like,
got
no,
it.
like there's a way to do it all. I just need more people. Like it was obvious to me.
Yeah.
So I do think I agree with you on that. But Omar kind of even framed it in an even deeper way. He's like, I think what you are is a productivity expert. And
Ooh.
I was like, okay, that's an interesting thing because delegation fits, underneath that. But,
Yeah.
that now starts to cover the other aspects that I've been talking about with Wealthy Way and everything with, hey, time management,
Yeah.
doing the most valuable things, focusing on the things that are going to make the most impact and create the most revenue, identifying the priorities and how you're going to, reach that. That's all in the realm of productivity. And I was like, man, maybe I'm not like a business guy. Maybe I'm a self-help guy. I don't know.
Maybe. Actually, I think Omar's onto something. I think that is a better framing because I don't
Yeah.
think it's delegation to just like, hey, it's your responsibility. I'm going to hold you accountable. It is about being productive and doing. I could see that. I think Omar is onto something. So shout out Omar. Um, let's switch it up a little bit. You put on an event, I believe, every quarter.
Hmm.
You've had the biggest of big names out there. Why don't we talk about how did WealthCon start? Like, where was that idea? When did it start? When did it become quarterly? And man, it's 1,000 people strong now. So let's just talk about the event.
Yeah. So first off, it didn't start out as WealthCon. What it started out as is, back in 2020, right before COVID, I started my coaching program.
Okay.
And with the coaching program, there wasn't even a plan to meet. It was like, it's all virtual. Let's do our thing. And at the time, there was 10 people. And, we're doing these calls for a couple of months. And I was like, hey, you know what? I think we should all meet in person and get to know each other and, like really set some goals for the quarter because it was coming up in
Right.
March. And I was
Okay.
like, how would you guys like to come to Vegas? We'll come to my house. We'll do it in my living room. We'll hang out, have dinner, and all of that. And they were
Oh,
like,
good.
let's do it. So I think 8 out of the 10 were able to make it. We had people from Hawaii, Alaska, the
Wow.
Midwest, everywhere. And, it was just super cool. And what's really cool is like out of those people that were there that day, I think 80, 90% of them are still in the program, 4 years,
Wow.
really good friends. Um, but anyways, it started as that. And I tell that story a lot because there was no vision of, dude, every quarter, not even when I started the program were we supposed to meet every quarter. It just like occurred to me that, hey, we should probably meet up in person. I think it's important. Well, as we know, COVID hit, and we went in lockdown and everything else. And then when things opened back up, I was like, hey, let's meet up again. People are able to come out. Let's go. And so we met up again, like at the end of June, and that ended up being our second meeting. And I was like, all right, how was the quarter? Everyone's doing good. The program's bigger now. This is great. And then at that point, I had this office that I'm in today. And so we met in the conference room, not my house. And then, the next quarter, it just became like expected. Because at that point, people were like, well, yeah, we meet every quarter. That's what we do. And I'm like,
That's what
that
we
is
do.
what we do. So,
Okay.
the next quarter, we meet in the office again and people are loving it. But this time, the program's getting bigger. And I'm like, I don't think the office can hold this anymore. And
Right.
so, the next one coming up, I was like, I'm gonna have to like actually get a venue. And so, I ended up getting this venue downtown that was free, that could hold like 100 people. And I was like, all right, it's gonna be great. So, we get this venue, and we do this great mastermind. There's no speakers. Like the whole time, it's just like a pure mastermind. It's me, it's
Yeah.
it's the students presenting, it's everything. And after we do it downtown, I'm like, you guys want to go out for drinks? And they're like, yeah, because we're just downtown. And so we go out to the bar down the street, and like everybody has a blast. And I'm like, all
Oh,
right, that was cool. So then the next one, we do it at that same place, but this time we plan it. We're like, yeah, okay, so we're gonna do this downtown thing. It's gonna be sick. And then, I rent out this bar. People are like, dude, this is awesome. So then the program gets bigger. It just keeps growing. And
right,
by the way, I never advertise or sell tickets to this. It's strictly for the students.
right.
And at this point, that location will no longer fit us, and I'm gonna have to go get a hotel. And so I started
Uh,
looking at prices of hotels, and I'm like, dang, the Strip is expensive.
Expensive. I tried that too.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And so we finally get this quote for a hotel downtown called the D, and it's like 50 grand for a couple of days. It doesn't ever even make sense to do it for just one.
Right.
You have to do it for two. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to do a 2-day event, it's going to cost me 50 G's. I might as well like sell some tickets to it, try to
Sure.
like cover my cost at least, and then
Mhm.
people can, meet the students, and maybe they'll join and whatever. There was like no pitches or anything. And so we do this first one at the D. There's like 200 people or something, and it's great. And it's the first time I ever got speakers. I had my buddy Steve Train come. I
Hmm.
had my buddy Chandler David Smith come. My buddy Kong came.
Yeah.
There's like
Yeah.
3 speakers,
All right.
and it was great. People loved it. It was a 2-day event. There was a lot of teaching. The students still were presenting at that time. I think we had like 6 student presentations that were really good. And
Mm.
then we would go downtown and party. So, we did that for a couple of times. Then we outgrew the D. So we go to the Sahara. And the
Oh
Sahara
yeah.
can fit like it's still like close to downtown, but we're
Sure.
making our way up the strip
Right.
towards, having made it. Okay. So we're on the Sahara. We're almost there. And I think the Sahara could fit like 300 to 350 or something. And so, we end up doing a couple of events there. And, I'm getting better and better speakers too. Brad Lee comes, and my buddy Carlos Reyes. And, people are loving it. Then finally, we do that twice. So like it's basically I had this pattern of I do 2 at a venue, and then we level up to the next venue. That was like the pattern. So
Okay.
then we're going into this next one, and I'm like, dude, guys, we were gonna have to actually go on the Strip, and we're gonna have to pay big bucks. We need to like do
Yeah.
this. I was like, who are we gonna get? And I had texted my buddy Hormozy. And at this point, Hormozy, people obviously knew who he was, but he wasn't as big as he is today. And I was like, hey, I'd love for you to speak at the event. We're going to get the Mandalay Bay, and it's going to be epic. And, him and Layla are like, yeah, we'll do it. I'm like, awesome. They didn't charge anything. They're like, how long do you want us to speak? I was like, literally, you guys could speak as long as you want. They ended up speaking about 3 hours. And
Mm.
Layla did an amazing presentation for like an hour. Alex did one for an hour. And then I interviewed both of them on stage. And, that event, we had about 700 or something. And it was epic. It was just like, it was a whole different level. It was like, wow,
Mm.
these events are now becoming like
Yeah.
next level.
A thing. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and at the time, it was still a real estate only event. It was called Future Flipper Mastermind. That was what it
Mm.
was still called, even though it was like an event. I'm like, I don't even know how this happened. It literally happened in just like
Yeah.
2 years.
Wow.
So then going into 2023, we're like, okay, well, I mean, now the bar is pretty high. We're gonna have to do this. And as I went into the year, I was like, okay, I'm starting to be known for the wealthy way. And I think we're going to have to rebrand our companies around
Mhm.
wealth. And so I rebrand all the businesses,
Right.
and, Future Flipper becomes Wealthy Investor. And, we create all these other wealthy businesses, and,
Mhm.
create this idea of Wealth Con. But, in January, I hold what was called the Tyke Summit, which was the first ever real estate and crypto event because I had my NFT project Tykes, which
Mhm.
was ultra successful. And I was like, look, I want to hold the biggest ever real estate and crypto event in the world.
Okay.
And we ended up doing that. There was over 1,000 people. The event was sick. It was 2 days. People loved it. Then, going to the next one, we're like, what would happen if we held one out of state? We've never done it out of state. Let's try it out. And so the first ever WealthCon, I was like, what am I going to call this event? Because it's not going to be the NFT event. So,
Mhm.
and it's not the Future Flipper Mastermind anymore. What's going to be the name? And I was just like, I don't know. WealthCon sounds pretty tight. And so it was literally
Great
like,
name.
there wasn't a lot of thought put into it. It was like, all right, WealthCon's a good name. Let's roll with that. So then, we do it in Hollywood. Once again, over 1,000 people. It was great, but I'll say it was much harder on us to go out of state and bring the staff and
Yeah.
logistic. It was just harder. And there was a lot of things in Hollywood that made it even more difficult for the people. Like they couldn't handle lunch and stuff because
Mm.
they're just not used to that many people and, just this one area.
Yeah.
So we ended up going back to Vegas in July, and we did the Mirage, and that was our biggest one ever. I think we had like 1,300. And looking back at it, I now realize I was like, dang, dude, that one was stacked. Like I didn't think about it at the time because I was just asking my buddies. Like literally the way that I fill the WealthCon lineup is I look at like who was on my podcast recently, and I'm like, okay, yep, he hasn't been on stage like before with me or like in over a year or something because I
Mhm.
don't want the same. Like that's what's crazy about it is that you're just
Yeah.
getting a new variety every event.
Yeah.
And dude, that one we had Brandon Turner, Bradley, Andy Elliott, Dan Martell. I don't even remember, but it was like a crazy lineup. And I was like, wow, dude, that was a
How'd I
lot.
pull that off?
I was like, that was a lot of bangers. I don't know that I could, like redo that level of like speaking talent again. But, then we ended up doing the next one at the M Casino, which was like, I'd literally made my way. The M is, for those who don't know, in all the way South Las Vegas,
Yeah.
as far south as it gets. And it's super sick, super nice. It's just not on the strip. So we
Right.
had worked our way literally from downtown Vegas, which is all the way up north, to the end of the strip. And it was like, wow, we like literally just we did. And the M was great. We had Ed Milet and
Yeah.
a bunch of
I
other
saw that.
people. And we're back at the M for this January, which we got Tim Tebow
Yeah.
and Thatch Nguyen, and so the speakers are still great. And I'm
Yeah.
actually right now in the process of planning out April's because it's just you're always planning for the next one.
Yeah. Yeah. If somebody wanted to go to it, I love Thatch Nguyen, Tim Tebow, and other speakers. Where would they go to get their tickets? Because I know it'll sell out. Where would we send them?
Wealthcon.org.
Wealthcon.org. Go check it out, folks. Um, I love all of that. I think we talked about on your podcast. I'm hosting my first event ever because we hit 50,000 subs. You're right. Vegas is crazy expensive. Everything seems to cost from venue to video to food to just all these other extras. So it was fun hearing your story, how you went from a free space all the way up to the Mirage and ultimately out to the M. So yeah, I think it is not cheap to hold an event in Vegas. That's for sure.
No. So you already held yours, right? Or are you still going
No,
to hold?
February 17th and 18th, President's Day weekend. Yep, all
Hmm,
sold out. We sold out VIP and general admission. But yeah, 300 people. We're doing our first event with 300 people.
nice. Where's it going to be at in Vegas?
It's at the Blind Center, so off the strip. The Blind Center obviously serves the visually impaired of Clark County. They do a genius idea is they rent their space out on Saturdays and Sundays.
Hmm.
And I rented the entire space, even though I didn't need it, so I could give back because it's obviously helps them fund the business.
Yeah.
And we're putting on a concert. They have their own house band called the Blind or the Broken Spectacles because it's a blind or sight impaired singing. So I'm buying everything they have to support the Blind Center, and
No,
yeah,
that's amazing. I love
should
it.
be a lot of fun. One of the things I do want to talk about is again, I'm an outsider. I watch what you're doing. It seems to me you started something in 2023 that you're passionate about, didn't talk about a lot, but I think it's going to be a big part of your future. And that is something I've heard you call Wealthy Kingdom.
Hmm.
What is it? What, where is it at? And what do you, where's it going?
Yeah. So, Wealthy Kingdom is, like I said, one of our education arms. But we're in the process of becoming a nonprofit. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it all gets approved. I don't know how long it's going to take. We've submitted months and
No
months.
idea.
But yeah, essentially it is a place for Christian entrepreneurs. Essentially how it started was I've been in Bible study with other business people for the last 6 years. And I've held it, in my offices and at my house and, all these other things, literally every week for
Mm,
6 years straight. And I would post about it on my Instagram and I'd be like, hey, Bible study. And, people started to ask me, dude, how can I attend it? And if they were in Vegas, I'd let people attend. And if they were out of state, they're like, can I zoom in? And I'm like, no, there's like, very private things people are sharing.
mhm,
And they're like, well, where can I find something like this where I'm at? And I was like, honestly, it just doesn't really exist. Your church might have something, but odds are it just doesn't really exist.
mm,
They're like, dang, dude, well, let me know if you open one up in wherever, right? And so finally, last December at this time, December's the only month, we take off. And, we just kind of do it to plan for the coming year and rest and everything else. And
mhm.
um, I met with, the people who had been attending it for years, our top like leaders. And I was like, guys, so what do we want to do this year? Do we want to, you know, we're just thinking from the Vegas perspective. We're like, hey, do we
Sure.
want to like go on some trips together? Do we want to like what studies do we want to do? How do we want to do it? And they were like, well, yeah, we need to do X, we can do Z, yada, yada, yada. And then like it just occurred to me as we were talking, I was like, man, we just need to go big. And they're like,
Mm.
what do you mean? And I was like, we need to go nationwide. This isn't about us anymore.
Ooh.
Like, we need to quit thinking about this from just our perspective because it's going to be super easy for us to like create this curriculum and then give it to leaders all across the country. We already have massive, community of students in all these different programs and they tell me they want to do it, they just don't know how.
Right.
Well, we have the curriculum and we're attracting the people in those cities and we're funneling them into these groups. And we already know we have reliable leaders because these people have been in my programs for years. We're already like ready. It's just
Mm.
a matter of saying yes. And so it became clear at that point. I was like, you know what? We're going to do it. And it didn't have a name or anything. I was like, but we're just going to launch these Bible studies and I'm going to figure out what else I want to do, how it's going to, sustain itself. What's it going to look like? How much will it cost? And all that. How are we going to train leaders? How are we going to hold them accountable? Who's going to be the head pastor? All this stuff. So I figured all of that out, in the coming months. And I got prepped to launch. We started to train up leaders to be able to launch their Bible studies. And
Mm.
I think it was like in June that we officially launched. And man, this year we started 50 Bible studies nationwide.
Wow.
And we went on mission trip to Mexico. We did some other cool things as a group. We had weekly calls together virtually as a group, and it was amazing. On top of that, we started incorporating it into WealthCon as well. This year with WealthCon, I started to do something, and it was all part of the same thing. God just called me to be more bold, just on social media and events and in my business and everything else. And I was like, hey, if anyone wants to pray, we're going to just pray in the morning on the last day of the event. And I was like, it's going to be early because the event starts at 9. So come at 7:30. We're going to go into a little breakout room. And if you show up, we'll pray and let's do this. And, I don't know how many people are going to show. I'm like, maybe like, I don't know, 50 people show up or something. It's early. People like are out late the night before.
It's Vegas, baby. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know how many are going to do this. Kid you not, 300 people showed up at 7:30 in the morning. And I was like, dude, all right, well,
We're going to the big room.
I was like, the room could fit 300. It was packed. But I was
Yeah.
like, well, now I have to like give a sermon. This isn't just like me thinking I'm
Yeah.
just going to pray anymore. I'm going to have
Yeah.
to give a sermon and talk to everyone and then pray. And so like out of nowhere,
Wow.
I start giving a sermon and sharing what was on my heart. And actually at that one too, we had not launched Wealthy Kingdom yet, but I was like, hey, this is what we're about to do. This is
Yeah.
what we need to pray for. And for anyone here who wants to lead a group, raise your hand. And so that's exactly what we did. And it was crazy. So yeah, it's funny because it kind of happened the same way that the original WealthCon happened of just I was
Right.
like, wow, that was weird. I can't believe it was like that. So the next one, I was like, hey, we're gonna do it again, 7:30. Well, again, like 300, 400 people show up. And somebody's like, dude, we should get like a guitar and stuff and do some worship music and like have a true service.
Mm.
We'll do some singing, we'll have a sermon, we'll pray, and like let's do a legit service. And I was like, guys, you know what? We're not going to just get a guitar. If we're going to have a legit service, we're going to have a legit service. We're going to just
Mm.
make it part of the event. It'll be on the main stage, and I'm going to get the best of the best. And so they were like, let's do it. So
Mm.
this last WealthCon, it was just part of the event. And I had my buddy Jordan Feliz, who's like a world-renowned Christian singer, come lead. And my wife put together a band. We had like 8 people,
Mm.
like full-on rock concert.
Nice.
And then I got my buddy Tim Ross to give a sermon. He has the biggest Christian podcast in the world. And it was crazy. And that was like the highlight of the event. Uh, and I told everyone it was optional. Like I was like, hey guys, just so you know, like this is going to be, on the last day at the beginning. If you don't have to attend, the normal stuff will start back at 10:30. But if you want to come at 9, this is what we're going to do.
Cool.
Well, everyone came and it was nuts. It was easily the highlight of the event. And so now it's just a part of WealthCon. Like these things
Mm.
just keep becoming part of it.
Yeah, I mean, all those stories I hear from you, you get an idea, you see a need, you lean, and you just keep going forward, and you keep executing, you keep learning, you keep improving. So makes total sense that they're kind of cross-pollinating and tying together. We're right near the end of this, but I'd be remiss if I didn't talk to you about what's got Ryan fired up about 2024. 2024 seems to be a very different market, leaving 2022 into 23. 24 appears to, at least today, to be different. What's got you excited?
Well, I'll tell you, looking at it, I've never been more excited for a year than I am for this coming year.
Wow, really? You've been doing
Yeah.
this a decade or so and you're okay. All right. Tell me why. I like it.
Well, I'll tell you, it's like there's only been a couple times in my life where I felt like I had um, crystal clear clarity and
Okay.
like I had something new that I just knew
Mm,
was going to crush. And, I'll tell you, like, so in 2015, when I learned about flipping house, like, so I learned about hard money loans and stuff at the end of 2014. And I
yep.
knew going into 2015, I was like, I'm about to crush.
Mm,
Like, this is what I've been searching for. There was no proof that it was going to work or anything, but I just knew. And
yep.
then that was the start of what everything became.
Mhm.
In 2020, I get this idea about social media and everything else. And like 2019, I'd already been thinking about it and like kind of prepping and researching. And then COVID just really like amplified it.
Yep.
But I just knew I was like, dude, I am doing social media and I'm going to crush. I don't know how long it will take. I don't know where it's going to lead, but I just know that this is what I'm supposed to do.
Okay.
So, it crushes. This year in 2024 is the first time again in 4 years, literally. Like if anyone would ask me at the beginning of 2023, like, hey, how's this year going to be? I mean, you could look back to other interviews and stuff. I was like, hey, it's going to be a rough year, guys. Like, this is, and I
Yeah.
told my team that I'm like, dude, I already know we're sitting on a bunch of losses. I'm going to have to figure out how we're going to deal with it. The market's going to suck. You guys, and I literally told my team, I go, you're going to have to work 4 times as hard to make the same amount of money
Yeah.
that you're
You're
accustomed to.
you're
Just so
right.
you know.
Yeah.
And so I'm very realistic. I don't just say this lightly. But yeah, this year in 2024, I feel like I have so much more clarity and like revelation on the next big thing. And, for me, that next big thing is just getting really good. And not actually, I take that back, not getting really good, but being the best at
Mm,
digital marketing. And the reason I'm excited for that is because the last bunch of years, I've just hired media buyers and all these guys and just kind of delegated and let them do their thing. And, it's at varying degrees of success. And it finally hit a tipping point where I was like, you know what? I'm going to just research this myself. I've been in the game long enough. I spent millions of dollars with these guys. I might as well start looking at what's actually happening and what they're doing and how they do it and see where they're screwing up. Because that's what I've always done in my career, whether it's flipping houses, social media. I've always looked at what the best people did. And I've been not easy, but I've been able to identify the weaknesses and the ways that could
mhm.
be improved and how I would do it.
Got it.
And with this, it's like, holy crap. There's a lot of talkers out there who will tell you they'll just do everything.
Yeah.
And to me now, having just hired so many people and seen how they run things behind the scenes, I'm like, dude, number one, I know how to run this better. And number two, it's like what I had when I was doing social media in 2020, where I saw the competition. I'm like, so you're telling me that guy's the biggest guy?
Mhm. That one? That guy right there? Okay, I
Yeah.
got it.
I'm like, that's the guy. That you're saying that's the biggest guy? And what does he do? That's
Yeah.
well, dude. All right, this is not going to be hard. I've done
Yeah,
things
let's go.
way
Yeah.
harder in my life than this.
Yeah.
So, that's what I've been devoting the last, let's just say 3, 4 months to. And I've already taken over all of my media buying and digital
I like
marketing
it.
all in house. I've already built a team. I've rebuilt new CRMs and funnels and flows. Um,
Nice.
and I know it's so important because everything we do in business is marketing and sales. And
Okay.
so for me, the number one way to market right now is digitally. And so how good are you at creating ads in Facebook and, YouTube and all these different things? And at this point, yeah, I know how to run that stuff. And, we're just continuing to get better for like the education products. But the part I'm most excited about, and people don't know this, is how that's going to impact my real estate business. People have
Yes.
no idea how massive this is going to be because all these real estate investors have no idea about any of the things I know about
Yeah.
digital marketing for like online products. It's just not used because it's just like a totally different skill set that online marketers and these guys have been doing for a long time. I'm going to take that
I
to
like
the
it.
real estate investing side. And so for me, one of the big changes and shifts we're making, like I said, we're going to go through the biggest shift we've ever gone through in my real estate business,
Mhm.
is we're going nationwide and we're going to be wholesaling nationwide. And I get kind of like, I start just laughing thinking about the numbers because it doesn't seem like it can be true,
Mm.
but it is. And I just, it's just a matter of doing it. But
Mhm.
like, you know, right now in Vegas, we've run TV commercials for 4 years straight. And that was a big risk. And obviously it's paid off. It cost me $600 to get a lead in Las Vegas on a TV
Okay.
commercial. That's the
Mhm.
cost. And it's highly competitive. You have to be really good at sales
Mhm.
to get the deal, even with that high quality of a lead. Dude, I can get leads all over the country in less competitive markets where the sale is freaking easy for $20.
Oh, wow.
And you start thinking about this and you're like, holy crap. Like, I'm about to
That's
take everyone's cookies because I know how to create these ads and funnels and generate all these leads. And my team now has the capability to actually wholesale nationwide and be able to capitalize on them. And so, like, the opportunity is so massive on the real estate side, just in
mm,
that front, but also being able to use the skills to raise capital and run funnels and ads for raising capital, which I've never had done before. And,
mm.
different things like IRAs and everything else that are such easy ways to raise capital that, it's just like my mind, it felt like it opened up a new thing that
Yeah.
I'm just like, holy crap. Like I said, I've only had this happen a few times where I'm like,
Right.
hard money, duh. That's what I needed. Social media. Okay, I
Ah,
knew social media
yeah,
was a thing, but I now see the process. Like I can see how you have it succeed.
right,
There's a
right.
clear template and blueprint to having success. And then this is the next iteration in my business career for me.
That's awesome. Well, we're going to wrap it up right there. There's so much other things we could have talked about. If somebody wanted to follow your journey in this year that you're going to crush, where do we send them?
Man, just Google me, Ryan Pineda. Whatever pops up, pops up. But yeah, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, you'll find me. You want to work with us, you can go to ryanpineda.com and we got just kind of all the stuff there.
There you go. Ryan, you're amazing, man. Take care of yourself. Thanks again for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.